Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Very exciting, very, very exciting. Listen, we live for these days, we live for these moments. It's not, one of the most frequent questions people ask me when I meet people is like, how many hours do you spend preparing this year? Today, at least 8 people asked me that question, and Shul, and here somebody asked me tonight. So I tell everybody, I work on the daf all day. Get up in Yisroel, I get up a couple of hours before the daf. Daf starts at 7:15. I get up a few hours before that, prepare the final preparation, because I really prepare that. It's all day, it's an all-day affair. So how is it that today, that I had to prepare 2 daf, and actually last year, exactly a year ago, was probably one of the most difficult days of my life. I said 3 shiurim in a span of 17 hours in a much more difficult Masechta called Masechta Shkalim, for me. So that was a real nightmare. So it's all relative. Look, compared to last year, there's a breeze, only 2. How exactly? It's probably not the best shiurim in the world, but we're doing it. We're here. It's 11:15 at night in Chicago. Everybody's shutting down, but we're going weiter, because you got to go weiter. Now, also, this doesn't mean because we're doing 2 shiurim today that we're putter from learning tomorrow, putter from learning on the. It's Yomi. We got to learn every single day. Happens to be that there's no other way to do it. We can't. There's no shiur. They can't record a shiur on Yom Tov, so we're recording now. I want to mention also that tonight, exactly 40 years ago, 40 years. It's a long time. 40 years ago, it was during Bedikas Chametz in my house, and my father went on a little bit of a tangent on the Bedikas Chametz, and the kids were getting tired. We all went to sleep, but he continued. And then the screaming, and we were woken up to a very, very scary scene. Our house was on fire. On fire, literally the house. We lived on 1380 East 13th Street in Flatbush, between L&M. And we were neighbors back in the day. You see that? Our Balbus was Reb Verschleiser. I don't think he's alive any longer. But anyway, the house, I said the story a number of times, but tonight is 40 years to that day. We were displaced for Pesach, of course. Not a few rooms burned. There was Nervayim, but we were all, it was nice, so Shechianu v'kimanu, I don't know, he said, Baruch Shasa lanu neis b'makim hazeh, or b'zman hazeh. Nobody was harmed. We thought that one of my sisters she was a baby at the time, and her crib was on fire, and I remember my mother trying to get into the flames and grab her, and my father was pulling her back, and she was screaming, but she's in there, and then it turns out that they forgot, they took her out, she was crawling around in the dining room somewhere. So anyway, so that was 40 years ago. As I mentioned in the other shir, tonight is going to be, we should all celebrate. It's a big occasion. We finished a full art scroll and Mesifta volume, a 40 daf. So we're used to making siyumim every time we finish one of these. In this Mesefta, I think it's 3 of these to make the siyum, but it doesn't mean that's not an accomplishment. Today, 40 daf into Yevamos, so it's a pretty big accomplishment. Everybody should party hard by the Seder, maybe drink a little wine, l'chaim. I just want to read a couple of things here. Chakoshev Sameach from Bettendorf, Iowa. I'll keep an eye out for any real-world Yevamos cases while here. Alan Wittert. And he sent me this video. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear. Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Okay, great. Somebody sent this in. I don't like to, use these kind of things, but he said that these are the Baldwin brothers. And I was thinking to myself, what does the Olam think if instead of having real life characters, we had funny characters? I was debating whether to do it like this. Would this be more interesting? Anybody? An opinion? Weirdos or real guys? Okay. Huh? Real weird. They are pretty weird. Trust me. I don't want to embarrass them, but bravo. Nobody's listening. So, Avi Kamiansky, he's the least of them. I'm a cousin to Yosef and Miriam. I'm drawing a blank. I don't know who he's referring to. Yosef and Miriam. Maybe my cousins in Israel. I have no idea. I'm a Talmud. Can I have yours? On my fourth Masechta, can I have via YouTube? I just want to wish you and yours Chakoshev Sameach with best regards. Yuri Silber, Cleveland, Ohio. This is a Givaldic. I thought this is a great picture. Maybe toyed around with it a little bit. Everything's blue besides the screen. Turning alive last night with my sleeping baby from the sky. Thank you for all that you do. Wishing you a beautiful Pesach. Dovid Badial. He's the guy that has a shas, and he got stuck on a lift from England to Muncie, so he didn't want to buy a new Gemara because he already has ours. So somebody said, if you join the shir, you get a free Gemara. So he joined the shir, he got a free Gemara, and he got stuck with the shir. And then he got his entire lift, and the first box he opened up, the Yevamos was on the top. It's mamash a nace, he said. He had no idea what was in that box, and that was the first box he opened. Here's from the Leafs. It says, good morning, Reb Eli. Please see a picture of A.B. Leifman, rocking the merch in Manchester Airport, check out his phone rig, attached his carry-on, wishing all kosher and Pesach. If you see his carry-on, there's a phone, the thing is right there. So, today's sponsors, the zechus for Hillel, Ben Sardina, and Rivka Basfega. This should be zechus Yevamos. This is the last day. Parents of Chodesh, friends and family. Refuah Shlema for Yaakov Yehuda ben Gittel. Amen. Parents of Chodesh, Bresler, Austein, Rosenberg, Schulman, Tobias families. The zechus Refuah Shlema for Yeshiva, Yisroel, then Dovid ben Yocheved Druk Shlita. Parents of Chodesh. By the Lock and Lebovic families, Lakewood NJ, because Torah is the best. This is Gula. Parents of Chodesh. Chodesh Nisan is sponsored by Eli. Yeshmas Dovid Pinchas ben Moishe Alav Shalom. Yeshmas Rucham Fruman Bas Dovid Pinchas Alav Shalom. Yeshmas Yichil Shrag Ibn Avram Alevi Alav Shalom. Parents of Chodesh. Ahron Fraiman is zechus. Parnosan Siyad Shmai Kedin Atzlach to Rebelli Shkoyach. By Aaron Hirsch. It's dedicating learning in honor of his father Avram Yitzchok ben Binyamin, whose yours is today on Erev Pesach. Wow. In the middle of all that cleaning, in the middle of everything, Levaya. Reb Avraham dedicated his life to spreading Torah and Kiruv as the Neshama should have, and Aliyah, also from Lakewood. You know Aaron Hirsch from Lakewood? You're different. Jackson, it's under the belt. All right, Rabbi Sai, here we are. Second cheer today. A bunch of troopers here. Wow, believe Land Hara. Almost everybody stayed. Givaldi. Okay, so we finished off. We had an interesting brisa. I'm going to see similar brisas to what we learned. That it says, in the beginning, this woman was mutter. Then she became aser. Then she became mutter. I would think that the heter she has today is the same as the heter she had yesterday. We explained it two shitas. Either can go according to Abishol, that in the beginning a woman is mutter, you can marry her l'shum noi, l'shum ishus, but then she becomes aser. I would think that you could be miyaber l'shum ishus. No, it has to be l'shem shemayim. Rava says no. Rava says I would think that the mitzvah of chalitza and yibum are equal. Kamash will know there's a greater mitzvah to be miyaber. So we're holding the last words on the Amud, on Amud Beis. Emereisha. Matzois te'ochel b'makom kadosh mitzvah. These are not the matzos of Pesach. Everybody don't get too excited yet. It's coming up. I'm not a big mathematician. You know that I learned math in Panovich, which means I didn't learn math. They don't teach math in Panovich, similar to Lubavitch and whatever. At least they have one thing in common. They don't teach math in Yeshiva. So I don't know what the odds are. I don't know how to do the odds, but there's 2,711 dapim. The odds that punkt, today's daf, should be talking about matzah and lachamoini on Leila Seder, and this is Leila Seder's daf. So I don't know. 1 in a billion. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to do that math. You guys figure it out. You have to know how many other places mention Shas, and then no, Reb Zalman, you went to Psachas Shecheder, you must know. You don't know. Okay. Zog the Gemara. What we're talking about over here is we're talking about I didn't do the pasuk. I know I did the pasuk somewhere. Okay. You know what? It's probably still in Word somewhere. Should I peek over here? Nah, not important. Okay. It's not that. The chuf. Basically, the pasuk starts saying, what's the lashon over there? The beginning of the pasuk says that they should eat it. Then the continuation of the pasuk says they should eat it. What are we talking about? We're talking about a mincha. A mincha. The kohen sticks his hand into the flour, takes a kmitza, puts it on the mizbeach. Whatever's left over, they could eat. So it says matzahs tiyachal. Here, that's the lashon. Matzahs tiyachal, but it says already. Rashi brings vaniseres min amincha yoichlu. What's tiyachal and yoichlu? Double lashon. B'makom kadosh. Matzahs tiyachal b'makom kadosh. Mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to eat it. Okay. Says the Gemara Daf Mem Amud Aleph on top. Shebetchila hoysa olav b'chlal heter. You could eat the flour, no problem. You go to the store, you eat the flour. Nesra v'chazra v'hutra. But now it became kachim, it became a mincha. You don't just eat it. But once you put it, whatever you had to put on the mizbeach, you take a scoopful, 3 fingers worth, you go like this, like that, and whatever's left over, you put onto the mizbeach. Once you do that, whatever's left over in the bowl, you get to eat. So there's a heter, a isser, and a heter, similar to what we said with the Yevamos. Yachal tachzal eterish harishain. Perhaps as you go all the way back to the beginning, like when it was in the food store. Mitzvah. It's not the same. There's a mitzvah. Now, what is going on here? Basically, Gemara is going to say that this doesn't jive so well with Abba Shol. So, if you look at the screen, the two parts, they mimic the wording very, very similar. The red is what we learned about a Yevama. The blue is what we just learned now. So it says B'tchila haisa b'chlal heter, and then it says about a mincha, same thing. B'tchila haisa olav instead of it says olav on the kohen b'chlal heter. By Yevama it says in the red, and we don't have any wording for that in the mincha. It says rotza kainza rotza ena kainza. If he wants to, he can marry her or not marry her. That's before. Then she became Nesra Chazar V'Hudra. The Yevama became married. She married the brother, so she became also with him. Then her husband died, so she became Hudra. In blue, that's exactly what we have by a mincha. Nesra. First, you have the flour you're allowed to eat. You're allowed to make bread, but then you made it into a karban. You made it into a mincha. It became aser. The Chazar V'Hudra. It's the same words, the red and the blue. And I just didn't have room on this page, so I just decided to do it. Red and blue. Yachal tachzal eteru rishain. It's the same words that we have by Yevama, and we have. So the Gemara is saying, look, if it's the same words, it probably means the same thing. But how could we fit what we said about a Yevama? Think about it. If we stop without looking into the Gemara, what does Abba Shal say? Abba Shal says, a Yevama is so usher if you think about the wrong machshava. You think that you want to marry her for Nai, you're over, maybe even a rice, maybe the kid is a mamzer. No, and how does that isser fit into a mincha? Doesn't work. She was mutter to you. You could have married her as a regular woman in the street. Then your brother married her. She became usher. Then she's mutter to you. You would think that you're allowed to have bad kavanah marrying her? No, you have to have good kavanah. It has to be l'shem mitzvah. Take that exact concept and put it into a mincha. No? You had a bowl of flour, you could bake a bread with it. Then it became aser. And then it became mutter. You have to have kavanah when you eat it. You're allowed to eat bread. You're allowed to eat the mincha. It's the same. How do you have Abba Shol's halacha when it comes to eating bread? That's what the Gemara is going to ask. We'll see inside. Maybe we'll understand better. According to Rava, who says it goes according to Rabbanan, not Abba Shol. This is what it means. You could eat the flour. You can make bagels, donuts, whatever you want. If you want to eat it, you could eat. You don't want to eat, don't eat. Nesra. But once you made it into a karban mincha, you were going to put it on the mizbeach, it became also to eat from it. But then once he did the kmitza, chazar v'hutra, then you can eat from it. Yachal tachzal l'teir rishon. Maybe you should go back to its original. Ratza oichla, ratza ena oichla. Wait a minute, the Gemara stops for a second. What do you mean ratza ena oichla? What, you're not going to eat it at all? What happened? Yisroel brought a mincha as a kapara. The kohen must eat from it, because if he doesn't eat from the carbon, what happens? The Yisroel doesn't get a kapara. So he doesn't. He's not. There's no option here not to eat it. You must eat it. Okay, so we need to explain that for a second. I would think that any kohen could eat it, not dafka the kohen performing the avodah. You performing the avodah, you kohen must eat it. So that's understandable according to Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi Domar Abasholi. But according to Rav Yitzchak, it says that this whole thing is going according to Abashol. She was mutter, she became usher, and now it's not the same. She doesn't go back to what she was. You can't just marry her for your taivas. You have to marry her for a mitzvah. Okay. But that doesn't fit into a carbon mincha. Maybe we could fit it in. If you are so full that you cannot fit in, the famous joke. The guy says, "I'm so full." What's the joke? I'm so full, I can't eat anymore. So the guy goes, "Oh, stick your finger in, and you'll throw up." He goes, "If I could stick a finger in, I would have stuck in another pulki." Kids, he's so full, he's up to here. So that's achila gasa. So maybe I would think that you could eat it achila gasa. Says Gemara, whoa, stop. It's like a tangent. Achila gasa mishma achila. That's not considered eating. There's no mitzvah to eat like that. You're not over on Yom Kippur. If somebody's stuffed after Sudam Afsekis, he's up to here, literally cannot fit in a finger into his mouth, and he eats. Then it's shkia, tzizkachav, and the whole thing, and he eats. Potter. Why? Because he just damaged his body. He didn't do any good. He did a terrible thing to his body. By the way, Derech Agav, we have to be careful tomorrow night. It's neget us. If you're so stuffed from Shulchan Aruch, you ate all the meat and all the fish, and comes afi kaimen and imamish, you can't eat. You have no time to eat. It's a problem halachically. You gotta pay attention to it. You eat afi kaimen l'soiva. Like you have to be not listen. You have to have maybe the opposite of l'soiva. Le ti'ovain, but l'soiva it's lashon of ala soiva. Yeah, okay, kids. So you have to have an appetite. So it says, he's so stuffed that then he eats. So, okay. So what's the pshat? Maybe we have to. How does the Abashal fit into this? Similar to Yevamos, you have to have good kavana. Maybe you could eat this mincha as chametz, not as matzah. No, no, you can't make it a chametz. Even partial part of it. Ella, maybe the pshat is maybe you could boil it in hot water. Says Gemara, so what's the problem? If it's good matzah, matzi. So what's the problem? He's mekayim the mitzvah. It's a good carbon. If boiling bread, dough, is not considered matzah, matzah it has to be a matzah. It is considered a matzah. Oh, Torah says this is the way to do it. So what point are we saying over here that it's chalot? It's a good matzah, but it's boiled. So what if it's boiled? The Torah says you can't boil it. It has to be exactly as is, not boiled. But it's matzah. So what point? Oh, Rabbi Isai, here is a hug from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Loimar shadam yoytza b'yidei chavasai bePesach. If you have a bagel matzah, you boiled the dough in water and then you baked it. Even though you boiled it, this is considered poor man's bread and it's good for matzah. So again, the Gemara says that if you boiled it and then you baked it, that's not considered a mincha. That's not good. It's matzah, but it's not good for the mincha, even though the mincha is supposed to be matzah. That's not the way you do it. You don't boil it first. You stick it straight into the oven. But it is considered matzah. For what purpose? What are you telling me it's considered? For Pesach. For tonight. This year is for tomorrow. Daf Mem is tomorrow's daf, yeah? And Mem Aleph is okay. Now we're really ahead. So Leila Seder, today's the people that are doing the regular schedule, they're going to be learning this daf an hour before Yom Tov. Leila Seder. Lechem oini. If you take dough and you put it into a pot of water and you boil it, mamish like we make bagels, and then you take it out of the pot and you put it into the oven, kosher matzah. You know who eats that bagel? Poor people. It's poor people's food. Okay? Well, certainly if you're Sephardi. Sephardim don't eat lox and bagels, right? Oh, yeah, I can't eat lox plain. They don't know what it is. They don't know what it is. It's not like gefilte fish. That's good stuff. I'm telling you. Zog the Gemara. Anyway, I think we should pause for a second and see the Yad Hashem over here. The Hashgacha Pratis, especially this cycle of finishing Masechtas Sukkah a day before Sukkot and Pesachim, it was crazy. The Yad Rosh Hashanah, on Rosh Hashanah, this cycle, we were learning about Rosh Hashanah, literally about Rosh Hashanah during Rosh Hashanah. And Shavuos by a couple of days. And Pesach, this the second year, maybe we had Pesachim, something to do with Pesach, I don't remember. It was one thing after another, and here we go, talking about Lechem Oini on Erev Pesach. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah. Sponsored, the official mission sponsored by the MDY Tehillim group, where we daven for Refuah Yeshuas and Shidduchim for Klal Yisrael and for our MDY family. Join us at tehillim.com. Yeshua Koyach. HaChoyel Tlivim Toy. Hareyu ke'echad menachem lenachlo. So, contrary to what I was darshaning the entire Masechta, the Mishnah over here says that the person who performs chalitza, the brother performs chalitza, he receives equal share of the inheritance. Like the Yavam in RBS who said, I performed chalitza, I got diddly squat. What are you talking about? So I refer him to Siman Kuf Samach Hey, where the Ramah says that our minig is today that the one that does chalitza gets 50% of the inheritance. Okay? I don't know if that's a real minig today, but that's what the Ramah says. We still didn't find out what the halacha is. If there's a father here, the father inherits the sons. If the sons don't have children, and over here he doesn't have a child, so the father takes everything. If a person performs yibum, then he gets everything, and there's two halachas here. Halacha number one is that if a person performs yibum, he gets everything that the yavam left over. Another halacha is that when the grandfather dies, the yavam's father, the yavam's father and the mace's father, right, the shira father, when that guy dies, the yavam receives a double portion of the father. Why? Because he takes the portion of his brother that died. He's instead of his brother. So Rabbi Yehuda argues on two things. A, the brother who performs yibum does not receive any of the yavam's nechasim. B, when the father dies, he doesn't get a double portion. Says the Gemara Pshita. The first part of the mission that the one who performs chalitza doesn't lose out and he gets a portion of the inheritance, pshita. Why should he lose out? Says the Gemara, what? You hear what the Gemara is saying? The opposite. That I would think he should get everything, like the Ramah, or the Ramah says 50%. But I should think he should get a lot. He performed something here. He should get a lot. He should get it all. Kamash Malon. Says the Gemara, Yihachi Hareyu ke'echad min ha'achim. What's going on here? So look at this chart, make it simple. The way it says in the Mishnah, ke'echad min ha'achim, meaning he should be like one of the brothers, meaning no less than one of the brothers. Einoi ela ke'echad min ha'achim, einoi ela means no more. So think about it for a second. If you're telling me that I would have a havamina that he should get it all, so then the blue would be more appropriate. You should say he should get no more than. He shouldn't get more than the other brothers. Not no less than. If you're telling me that we have to punish this guy, I would think that you have to punish him. He's a bad guy. He shouldn't get anything. So then the red is very appropriate. No less than everybody else. You don't punish him. But you're telling me the opposite. You're telling me, I thought that it's like the Ramah on steroids. He should get everything. Everything. So then the Mishnah say, don't think he should get everything. He should get no more than everybody else. The Lashon is a little off. Hareyu ke'echad min ha'achim. That's not a good Lashon. That's red. You should get no more. Look at the say. No. I would think that he's a bad guy. Why? Because he performed chalitza and not yibum. And therefore what? He shouldn't get any Yerusha. He should have no less than everybody else. We shouldn't punish him. If there's a father, the father inherits everything. The father gets everything. You go up to the father, and then you see if the father has anybody else. Okay, etc. If a person performs zibum, the Mishnah says he gets all of the inheritance. My time, he steps in instead of the brothers, he gets everything. Or he come and he's instead of. Reb Yehuda, he doesn't get anything. So over here we have, don't get too excited yet. We have Ula who says that Allah is like Reb Yehuda. We're going to have other people that say that Allah is not like Reb Yehuda. The Allah is like Reb Yehuda what? That a Yavam doesn't receive anything in the Yerusha. It goes to the father. Why don't you get anything? He should be like a b'char, like a firstborn. A b'char doesn't receive any Yerusha when the father is still alive. He has to wait until his father dies to get anything. So too this Yavam is no better than a b'char. He doesn't get anything when the father is still alive. If you're comparing him to b'char, so he himself should get 2 portions. You yourself, Reb Yehuda, are mechulik on that. And you say he doesn't get 2 portions. He only gets 1. Midi Yakum Ashem Aviv Ksiv. Doesn't say he steps in instead of the father. Yakum Ashem Achiv Ksiv. He steps in instead of the brother. V'lo Hashem Aviv. Says Gemara, wait, if there's no father and he can receive a portion, the Torah talks about how much Yerusha. So maybe they're connected. If he receives Yerusha, he does Yibum. If there's no Yerusha, no Yibum. There's no father, so therefore he can get Yerusha, then he can perform Yibum. But if there's a father, he doesn't get Yerusha. There shouldn't be any Yibum. Says Gemara, is Yibum dependent on Yerusha? First, there's a mitzvah to do Yibum. If there's something available, take. Listen to this, Rabbi Isai. I think this is also hashgacha she'ein kamayu. This Gemara here, I don't know if you'll hear it anywhere else in the world. It's kedai to come to shir just to hear this. Listen to this. Yosef Rebbe Chanina Kara. Rebbe Chanina Kara was sitting. Why is his name Kara? His name is Kara because Kra. What does Kra mean? Torah. To read from the Torah, from the Ksuv and the Nevim Ksuv. He was a pro in Tanakh. He knew Nach like nobody else. So they called him, he had a nickname. Rebbe Chanina Kara. He sat. Kamei de Rebbe Yanai, Yosef called Mar Loch Rebbe Yehuda. He says the halacha is like Rebbe Yehuda. Omar le, Rebbe Yanai tells him, Poik, get out of here. Kari karech lebara. Go outside. Read your stuff outside. Ein halacha Rebbe Yehuda. The halacha is not like Rebbe Yehuda. So first of all, I want to say that he used this lashon on purpose. He said, Puk Kara. Go outside and read, because that was his name. His name was Kara. You're such a professional in Tanakh. Go outside, read your Tanakh outside. Why am I saying this? Because I looked it up, and the lashon in Shas is always Puk Tani. 17 times in Shas it says Puk Tani. Go outside and learn. Only over here does it say Puk Kara, and one other time it says Puk Kara. It's these two people again, Reb Chanina Kara and Rebbe Yanai. So I think it's a play on words. He gave him a shtach a little bit. Take your chumash, learn your chumash outside. But here's what's very, very interesting. I once heard that the reason why Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Beis Yosef, is called Karo, because he's a descendant of Chanina Kara. But here's what's interesting. Today is Rabbi Yosef Karo's Yartzai. Yeah. So we have to look it up. I remember reading this. Huh? The Beis Yosef, the Baal Shulchan Aruch, today is his Yartzai. Yosef Chanina Kara Kamei, the Rebbe Yanai, Yosef Kalmar Al Yehuda. He says no. His name is not. The Allah is not like Rebbe Yehuda. So there was somebody reading in front of Reb Nachman, and he says the Allah is not like Rebbe Yehuda. In other words, the Yavam does take Yerusha. Amalei El Kaman. You telling me a big chiddush here? Excuse me. Who else should it be? Rabbanon. Pshita. Of course it's like Rabbanon, not like Rebbe Yehuda. Yocheved Rabbim, like Rabbim. What was he having in it that Allah is like Rebbe Yehuda? I mean, Ula says that Allah is like Rebbe Yehuda. But I don't see a big chiddush in it. Omar le, ask me. It's so pashut. Should I strike it? Should I remove it completely from my brisa? There's no need for it. It's pashut. If you have a machlokes between Rabbanon and Rebbe Yehuda, the Allah is going to be like Rebbe Yehuda. Like Rabbanon. Omar le loy, don't take it out of your brisa. At halacha asniach. You learned that it is the halacha like Rebbe Yehuda. Umukcho with akshilach, and you had a question: how's it possible that the halacha is like a yochid and not like the rabbin? V'afacht, and you flipped it over. Ulamai da'afacht, shaper afacht, and it's a good thing that you flipped it and leave it as is. The halacha is like Rabbanon, and shalom al Yisroel. Says the Mishnah, the official Mishnah sponsored by MDY Tehillim Group, where we daven for Refuahs, Yeshuas, and Shidduchim for Klal Yisrael and our MDY family. Says the Mishnah, if somebody performs chalitza to his Yevamos, so midaraisa, there's no connection really between him and the Yevamos. He did chalitza and finished. But we say no. He's like somebody that got divorced, and when somebody is married and divorced, there's isurim. You can't marry the relatives after the divorce. So too, you can't marry the relatives after chalitza. Who also bekroiv yisrael v'asura bekroivav. We turn to Daf Mem. Unbelievable. Mamish plowing through Yevamos. Daf Mem. Sponsored by Moshe Horn in honor of Jolly Joe Kraus and family in honor of Ed Kinsbursky, Brian Kinsbursky, and Ari Miller for learning the Daf. So the Gemara says like this. The Mishnah says, "Hu aser be'ima ube'im ima." Now, boys, I think this is gonna mamish throw everybody for a loop. Even though we learned this, if you just stayed here for this halacha, question: where in the Torah does it say that you cannot marry your wife's grandmother? Says it in the parasha of Arais. Another question. You ready for this one? Where does it say in the Torah that you cannot marry your grandmother, your own grandmother? Everybody think for a second about their grandmother. Grandmother, yeah. Where does it say in the Torah you're not allowed to marry her? Anybody? What parasha in the Chumash? What? No. Why? What do you mean it doesn't? That's right. You're allowed to marry your grandmother. You hear this? You're allowed to marry your own grandmother. Just midrabanan. It says us shniyos. Very good. Okay, the oilam's holding cup. Shkoyach. I might need it actually. Fine. I don't know. I think it's wild. We learned it. I think Daf Chav or something. But to think about it, your own grandmother, picture your grandmother. You can marry your grandmother, Midiraisa. Not that you want to, Reb Zalman, but you're allowed to Midiraisa. So maybe it's so obvious that nobody wants it that it's not even the Torah didn't have to say that. Okay, fine. But here, listen. But your wife's grandmother's this Midiraisa. It's a chiddush, big chiddush. Everybody should be jumping. Ube'ein ima, and in your wife's grandmother. Ube'ein avia, and your grandmother, her grandmother from her father's side. Ubebita, and you're not allowed to marry. Again, you did chalitza to this woman. You cannot marry her grandmother from her father, from her mother. Ubebita, and you cannot marry the chalutza's daughter, Ubebas bita, and her granddaughter, Ubebas bina, and her granddaughter from her son. Right? I mean, think about it. Who is a chalutza? Usually very young people, tragic accidents, or very old people. People that lived for many years and they didn't have children, they died. Brother died. Or, usually not. Okay. And her sister, you should not marry your chalutza, the Yevama that you performed chalitza on her sister. But the brothers of the one that performed chalitza, they can. We should remember this halacha. The brothers are mutar. The asura, and the same thing applies to her. She cannot marry his relatives. Ba'aviv, his father, Ba'avi Aviv, and his grandfather, B'bnoi, and his son, B'bnoi, and his grandson, Ba'achiv, B'ben Achiv, and the brother's son. Mutar adam b'krevas tzaras chalutza. Now look at this. Here, start out. This is a sequence. This is not the whole case. You have here Ruvain married to Leah, and Ruvain goes bye-bye, so Shimon is choletz Leah. Now, Ruvain had another wife, 5-towner. So Shimon cannot marry the 5-towner. Why? Tzara, and the Tzara is also. But the Tzara's sister, Bat Ayin, is the Tzara's sister that he could marry. So he's mutter in the karoiv of the Tzara. You see what's going on here? Very simple. Shimon did chalitza to Leah, and Leah's Tzara is 5-town. So to the 5-town, that's a Tzara. No go. But the 5-town sister is mutter. We have to understand why mutter, and then this case is asur. What happened over here? Same case. Ruvain goes bye-bye, and he leaves over Leah. Leah has a sister called Rachel, right? An identical twin, Rachel. Rachel is married to the plumber from Muncie. And the plumber from Muncie has another wife. So because Rachel is Leah's sister, and she's Achois Chalutza, so Shimon cannot marry the Tzara, the Bat Ayin lady, who's a Tzara to the Achois Chalutza, to the sister of Leah. It's a far relative. Over here it's Aser. Over here it's Mutter. What's the difference? They're kind of the same distance from each other. Leah's co-wife's sister is Mutter. Leah's sister's co-wife is Aser. Should I tell you the secret? Why? The Gemara says at the end, all the way at the end of the daf, that Leah and Rachel go to Bezdin together. Leah doesn't want to go to Bezdin to get chalitza by herself. She needs somebody to accompany her, right? It's normal, right? A woman's not going to go by herself to Bezdin. It's scary, spitting, this, that. Who's she going to bring? Her own sister. And people might get confused. They might say that, oh, Rachel got chalitza. They're not going to chap. And therefore, Rachel's co-wife is Aser. But in this case, 5-towner is not accompanying Leah to the Bezdin. They're not sisters, they're just co-wives. They hate each other. So in Mela, the co-wife sister is Mutter. That's the end of the Gemara. Fine. Says the Gemara. Let's see the Mishnah inside, just finish it off. Mutter Adam Bekreves Tzaras Chalutzasa, Yiva Aser Betzaras Kreves Chalutzasa. I think without a chart, it would be like, just the wording is a little difficult. When you see it up close and personal, it's very easy. Ibaylu. This is what we're going to be dealing with today. This question. Gazru shniz bechalutza Eli. So these chalutzas, right? Your own grandmother. Okay, but not really your grandmother. So you have the wife's great grandmother. She's a shnia. Typically, that's a shnia. Your real wife's great grandmother. Chacham said you can't marry her. You shouldn't marry that 98-year-old. Fine. But what if she's your chalutza, not your real wife? Are you also to the chalutza's great grandmother? Do we go so far and be goyzer gzeiros? These are all the rabbanans, the rabbanans. Says the Gemara, Eli, when it comes to a real doiraisa, so Rabbanan said, don't marry your wife's great grandmother. But she's just the rabbanon chalutza. The whole isser doesn't even start with the rice. It's only the rabbanon. So maybe rabbanon didn't go so weit all the way to great grandmother. Maybe there's no difference. Tashma. What does it say in the Mishnah? Think about it. The Mishnah stops at a grandmother. Doesn't talk about a great grandmother. L'chayr it's mashma from the Mishnah. You could marry a great grandmother. Says the Gemara. Oh, here. I actually spent time doing this. I don't know why. When I was running out of time. Here you go. Leah's mother is percolating in black. Leah's grandmother is percolating in green. And Leah's really old great-grandmother is in white. The question is, Shimon, who did chalitza to Leah, could he go ahead and marry the burqa lady in white, the great-grandmother? Says the Gemara. Well, in the Mishnah doesn't mention the great-grandmother. I'll tell you why it doesn't say it. Remember, I told you to remember those words, 3 lines down from the top. So, it says in the Mishnah that the brothers are mutter in the relatives. So, says the Gemara, if the Mishnah would have mentioned a great-grandmother, this white burqa lady, when it says that a brother is mutter in the chalutza's relative, maybe what the Mishnah meant is the great-great-grandmother, not a real relative, not a closer relative. Maybe a shnia relative. Well, if that's the case, the Gemara says that's not a solid raya, because then v'lisnei aim ima, it should say great-grandmother. V'lisnei, I have a simple way out of this. V'lisnei achim mutarim bikulon. If I just had the word bikulon, it means all the relatives in the Mishnah. I wouldn't make a mistake that it means only the lady in white and nobody else. Kasha, okay. For the kasha, start finished. It's a good kasha, but it's not the end of the world. Toshma. Another raya. He asur ba'aviv u'ba'avi aviv. Let's see. I think I have this. Oh, Leah is asur in Shimon's grandfather. So you have Shimon's father on top of him. Ignore. I know you guys know all these characters and the brothers. They're the Baldwin brothers. And even the guy in the black cat is a brother. Not today. So Shimon's father is Levi, and Shimon's grandfather is Nasan, Naphtali, and therefore Leah is also to marry the grandfather. Okay. Ktani mio avi aviv. My love, mishum chayletz. L'chayra. Why can't Leah marry Shimon's grandfather? Because of Shimon. Dahavya lo kalas benoi. He is also to her because she is like. She's not really married to Shimon. She got a chalitza from Shimon. So we're going to pretend that she's a daughter-in-law. So you see from here that what? That Shniyos, the grandfather, is also because we make a gzeira. Says the Gemara, no. This question and answer we're going to have numerous times. So you know this one, you know them all. No, Mishum Misna, look at the picture. You forgot something. You forgot that Leah was actually married to the other brother, Reuven. She was really married to Reuven. And she's really a daughter-in-law. A real Doiraisa daughter-in-law. Not because of this guy, Shimon, but because of this guy, Reuven. Right? That the grandfather over there is Reuven's grandfather also. And he's awesome in Doiraisa because it's his grandson's wife. This teretz we're going to have a number of times. In different ways. Some of them are maybe a little bit more difficult to understand, but that's the gist of it for the rest of the sugya. No, because right now we're focused on Shimon. I don't know what the Havamina is. After you see the answer, we don't understand the Havamina, right? But we're focused on the Shimon, and Shimon is the we're not thinking about Reuven who's dead. We're thinking about Shimon, and hey, she cannot marry his father, grandfather. We're talking about him. We're focused on Shimon, and then we forgot that there's a bigger problem. That her niftered husband, whatever you call him, it's also his father and his grandfather, and therefore that's why it's also. Yeah, we're talking about the choylets and the chalitza, but we forgot for a second, like he's asking, but at the end of the day, she's really a daughter-in-law. Not a derabbanan daughter-in-law. She's a real daughter-in-law. That Isser of daughter-in-law never goes away when the husband dies. It's not like a chaysisha. It's the only arise in the world that goes away when somebody dies. Or Eshesach sometimes goes away, whatever, for another reason. Toshma. We said that one. Toshma. Ubeben benoi. I think we have a chart for that. Yeah. It's just 3 generations down or 2 generations down. You have, Shimon has a son called the dentist from 5 towns, and that son has a son. So Shimon's grandson. Leah is Asur because she received Chalitza from Shimon. She's Asur in Shimon's grandson. Says the Gemara. Now, what's the Havamina Tzaddik over here? Are you focused now? Are you paying attention to Reuven? Or we're focused now on Shimon? It looks good. The picture looks good. We're thinking about Shimon now. Shimon has a grandson. And Leah is Asur to this grandson. Why is she Asur to the grandson? L'chayra, she's only Asur midrabanan because of a Shniya. Maila mishum choylets, because of Shimon. Dahavi lo eishes avi aviv. We're going to pretend she's the wife of Shimon, the grandfather. Loi mishum misna. What did I just do? It's because you forgot your focus. The focus is on her husband, the one that died. That's why. She's the wife of the brother who happens to be the grandfather. She is the wife of Reuven, who's the brother of Shimon. Not because she is the chalutz of Shimon, but because she was related through marriage, a real strong marriage to Reuven. So we still don't have a raya if we care about shnius or not. Says the Gemara, this exact case that we're focused on Ruvain, Meir says Leah could marry the little guy, the grandchild. It's a very far relative. Says the Gemara, Mukilo bebar bero the Saba. Says the Gemara, we have to be talking about this case. When we say Ben and Ben Benoi, we're not talking about Shimon's son and Shimon's grandson. We're talking about Naphtali's son, Shimon, and Naphtali's grandson, the dentist. We're not talking about little guy. There's an X on the little guy. So in other words, we just took it up a generation. That's why it's also according to Amemar. Yachi, Hainu Achiv, Uben Achiv. So it's the same exact person. Why are you mentioning it twice? Achiv, the brother, Uben Achiv, and the son of the brother. Says the Gemara, Tana Achiv min Av, Tani Achiv min Aim. We're talking about two types of brothers, from the mother and from the father. Tashma, Tani Reb Chia. Arba Midivri Torah. This chalutza is also to 4 people midiraisa, and she's also to 4 people midirabban of Arba Midivri Sefer. What are the ones that are also midiraisa? She's also to marry the chaylitz's father, Av, Ubenoi, and the chaylitz's son, Achiv, and his brother, Uben Achiv, and her nephew, or his son. Midivri Torah. Avi Aviv. Now, midirabbanon, the grandfather, Bavi Imoy, and the grandfather from the mother. Ben Benoy and the grandson, Uben Bito, and the grandson from daughter, Midivri Soy from his only midirabbanon. K'tonimi Avi Aviv. It says, grandfather, my lab, Mishum Chaylitz, isn't it because of the relationship through the one that performed Chalitza? Vavilah Kalas Benoy, same thing as we said before, Loy, Mishum Misna, because of the dead guy. Vavilah Kalas Benoy is really a daughter, she's really a daughter-in-law. Toshma. Avi Imoy, the father of his mother. My lab, Mishum Chaylitz. Lavilah Kalas Bitoy. Loy, Mishum Misna. Again, the same thing. Tashma ben Benoy, my lab mishum chaylitz. The grandson, isn't it because of the relationship between the yavam, the chaylitz, the avilacious avi aviv, loy mishum misn avi lo eishes achi avi aviv. We said before. Oh, va'ameimer machshir beishes achi avi aviv. But wait a minute, that case, Ameimer says, is mutter. Ameimer moikim lo, you're right. So now the Gemara can't say what we said before. Ameimer because Savar goes to Shnias B'chalutza. Ameimer is going to say that we're talking about, you're right, it's Takasv is the Chaylitz, and there is a Gzeira. You're asking me, are we Geyser Shnias? Yes, according to Ameimer we are. Tashma, but we don't know what we do. We know what Ameimer. So far, we'll say Ameimer is Geyser. There is a concept of Shnias. Tashma. Ube ben Bitoi, she's also to marry the son of his daughter, a grandson. My lab, Mishum Chaylet, same thing we had on the grandson before, but this is from the daughter. This comes from her ex-husband. I don't know if a husband dies, is that an ex? Not a, what's the proper way to call it? Huh? Yeah, but what is he? He's not a widow, he's in the grave. She's the widow. I don't know what she is. Okay. Her husband, that was Nifter. Mishum Misna. Davila Eishes Achi Avi Imoy. Sorry. Tashma Ubeben Bitoy. The son of his daughter. My la Mishum Chayles Davila Eishes Avi Imoy. Lo. Mishum Misna. David Lo. She becomes Eishes Achi Avi Imoy. No, it's not complicated. It's same thing as we had before. She's the wife of the brother. We're not talking about the chaylitz. We're talking about the brother of the chaylitz. V'ha gabishnias derva loy gazru. Ela mishum chaylitz. U'shma'amina gazru shniyos b'chalutza. From here you see that we were geyser shniyos b'chalutza. Shma'amina. So we have a good raya finally. Says the Gemara Muda Adam. Amar Avtayir bar Kisna. Amar Shmuel. Haba tzaras chalutza havlad mamzer. What happens if a person marries the chalutza's there any more charts here? That's it. Okay. A person marries the tzara of the chalutza. In other words, there's two women who were married. Do we have a picture of that? All the way up there somewhere? No. Yeah, okay. Ruvain goes bye-bye, and he leaves over two wives, Leah and 5 towns. He performed chalitza on Leah. Then he wants to marry the 5-towner, Havlad Mamzer. Why is the Vlad Mamzer? Right? Shimon performs chalitza to Leah. The other one is a tzara. It says big box osir on her. And he marries her anyways. What's the halacha to the child? My taima bisura kaima. Says the Gemara, the 5-towner has halacha of a eshes ach. Why? Because you could either perform yibum or perform chalitza. But neither was performed to her. It was performed to her co-wife, Leah. Therefore, she remains with the original isser of eshes ach. Now we learned this case. Person is mutter to marry bat ayin, which is the sister of the co-wife of your chalutza. Yes, slow. Shimon performed chalitza to Leah. Leah has a co-wife called 5 towns, and the 5 towns is a sister called bat ayin. So Shimon is allowed to marry her. Says Gemara, very good. If there's no connection between 5 town and Shimon, in other words, she remains eshes ach. Then you can marry her sister. There's no connection. There was a little zika there once upon a time, but there's no real connection to make it isser there. She's removed from the whole parsha, and she remains esher sach. Therefore, it makes sense. That's why you're allowed to batay. But if you say that the tzara has the same halacha, like the woman that chalitza was performed for, like Leah, then batayin should be also amay mutter. Therefore, the Gemara continues. Let me have it to the Reb Avraham. This should be a big question on Reb Avraham. Da'amar beinhu bein achim ein chayovim lo yal chalutza kares v'lo yal tzarasa kares. Reb Avraham holds there is no eshes ach on 5 towner. That's a question on what we're just saying. Shmuel holds 5 towners eshes ach, it remains. And it fits into our Mishnah because the Mishnah says mutar b'kravis tzaras chalutzasai, that you're allowed in the badayin. But how does Rabbi Yochanan explain it? Rabbi Yochanan says that a 5 towner is not asur mishum eshes ach. Only a side isser called lo yivna, shuv lo yivna. But there's no mamzerus. She's not an erva. Did I skip? To the Rabbi Yochanan, Omar beinu bein achim ein chayovim lo yachuz kares v'lo yatzaras kares. She's not an erva. It's also to marry 5 towner because since you didn't perform chalitza, do not marry her again. But it's not erva. You think this whole concept of a sister of a chalutza is the whole thing is the Rabbanan. Says the Gemara. Now let's go back. I already explained it all the way in the beginning. Let's go back to this case. Why is it that over here in this case, Shimon performs chalitza to Leah. Leah has a co-wife 5 town. Shimon in blue suit is allowed to, in light blue is allowed to marry batayin. Why? And why is it that this case right over here, Leah has a sister called Rachel, and Rachel has a co-wife called batayin. Over here, Shimon cannot marry batayin. What's the difference? And here we finish today's shir. Over here, in this case, when we're looking at Leah and Rachel go to Bezin together, therefore, Gazu Rabbanon said we got to be careful for a number of reasons. One of them primarily is that people are going to think maybe Rachel received the chalitza, and then you go ahead and you're marrying Bata'ayin. You're allowed to marry the tzara of a chalutza. They just see two women come out, and they heard there was a chalitza performed, and two women come out, go in, two women go in, two women come out. They don't know who the chalitza was. Okay. But in this case, five-towner has nothing to do with the Yerushalmi lady. They hate each other. They're not sisters. They're just co-wives. They're not going to go to Bezin. There's no reason to aser five-town sister called Batayin. Loi gazu b'rabbanon. Have a wonderful day. And chakashav samech. If I don't see you guys, but tomorrow, Be'ezer Hashem, right here, 2 o'clock. Wish me luck. Have a great evening.